Oh, so I have a copy for you next time we meet of this book. I have two. So
Okay.
one for me and one for you makes two.
Okay.
And because that's what I was going to assign, but Varieties of Religious Experience is available for free online. And the course could just focus in on that. There are 20 lectures, which neatly divides in 5 courses at 4 lectures per seminar. So we could just assign that one book for free. It's on Wiki Resource.
Okay. I think that probably would be a good idea just to submit it as the.
Yeah, this is only $9 or less post-paid, and it's got the introduction by McDermott, but I could summarize McDermott's good points and skip any bad points.
Yeah, I bought Marita a copy of Varieties of Religious Experience. She liked the text, but if people want to just use it online, I didn't realize it was free online.
Yeah, it's free online. You go to wikiquote.org, search under William James for his quotes. And then when you get down to Varieties of Religious Experience, there's another link and you click on that and it takes you to the full text. McDermott also contributed the introduction to this volume of the works of William James, Essays in Religion and Morality.
Now, if we get students signing up for our religion and science program, this is one of the courses for that.
Yeah, well, that sounds great.
Yeah.
We're
trying to get, Mary's looking to do some advertising, that degree program.
Yeah, I think, WGU, I sent you the emails. They're advertising very heavily. Do you listen to MSNBC at all?
I do, yeah, but I never saw an ad for that.
Well, it's not a matter of seeing it. It's only on the tunein.com radio broadcast of their TV show. It's the exact same audio, but there's no video whatsoever. You don't need to see Rachel Maddow or Lawrence O'Donnell. You know what they look like. So you could call up their picture if you need to from the internet. But no sense looking at a bunch of talking heads. So I just have it on radio and then I can read my email while I'm listening to internet radio. So it's www.tunein.com/radio/MSNBC.
Okay.
And you'll hear, if you tune into that, I think it's totally free. You can listen to MSNBC and then you'll hear the ads and what they're saying. They have a student doing the voice and they have a male student and they have another ad with a female student, 2 separate ads. And the woman says, now I didn't know if I could have the time to do college, but I got it practically memorized because I hear it so often. Although I do try to hit mute when I get a chance. And then she says, but I get to take the test when I'm ready at WGU. And, there are no fixed deadlines and I can do it while I'm on the go on my phone and I can, submit the assignments when I want on my terms. So I'm going back to college on my terms. And I said, well, what's next? You're going to say you can do it while you're on the toilet or something. She said, I can do it while I'm at the beach, or I can do it. She says all these different places where she can do the college work.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Marita now since.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Hi, Marita.
Well, I have to go down and tell her to turn it on.
Oh, okay. Bye, Jerry.
Class.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm full screen. Hi, Marita, can you hear me?
And you'll see me in a minute.
Okay, take your time. I'm trying to call up that list of quotes that we started.
That's
do.
what I was trying to find.
Yeah, I
that's-
can email it to you again, but you can find it online at wikiquote.org and then search under William James in the search box in the upper right.
Okay. Let's see.
And I emailed you an attachment in Word so you could print it out if you have a printer there.
Yeah, I don't, but what I have is my phone. So, wait just a minute. No,
I can always read them again the way I did last time.
let's see. Would it be, let's see, wait just a minute. Useful.
I sent it
link.
last Friday, so it'd be
Yeah, useful links. Yeah, I think I have it. No, wait. Varieties. Here it is. Yeah,
it should say something like William James quotes or something.
yeah. Yeah, I got it. I think I got it. Wait a
Go ahead
minute.
and take your time and open it up and we'll see what there is to see. Huh.
Is it wikiquote.org?
Yeah, www.wikiquote, all one word, wikiquote.org. And then you have to
William
go,
James.
yeah, then you have to go to the search box. This is if you're doing it online.
Mhm.
Oh, there's my William James folder. And
I'm trying to.
okay, I got mine up and running. Or it's loading anyway.
Let me see what it looks like. Good.
But you said you couldn't do two screens, but you don't really need to look at me as long as you have the audio. I look the same. I didn't get a mohawk hairdo or anything to spice things up.
I've got quotes. Wait a minute. Quotes.
Yeah, the name of the file is William James Quotes from WikiQuotes, saved August 4th, 2022. That's the name on my version of it. But are you actually trying to go there online or are you trying to read my Word file? I can send you the Word file again too.
Could you send me the Word file? Would you
Yeah.
mind? That would be really helpful.
Yeah, let me shift over here to
I think I have them on.
which one are you trying to do? You trying to read your email from me or are you trying to find it on wikiquote.org directly? Which one are you trying to do?
Well, right now I want to read your email from you.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that should be in whatever folder. I sent it a week ago today, exactly.
Yeah,
But I can send it again just as easily.
if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
Wait a minute.
So it's going to be called, is it not working? Oh, I had some slowness in my, it's just going to be called, the subject is William James Quotes. It's an email from today and I'll put see attached. And then now let me attach it.
I really enjoyed our session last week. I
Yeah,
tried
me
to
too.
communicate that. It was very enjoyable, as well as I felt I learned a lot.
Enjoyable and enlightening. That's my goal, the twin goals. There we go. Okay, I've attached it and now I'm sending it.
Great.
Did you get it momentarily?
I've been reading the book. I'm not
Yeah.
getting, I'm only in lecture 2, but because I go over it to really make sure I understand what he's communicating. And I seem to be able to do that if I, take my time.
Yeah, philosophy is not really like reading Jaws 3 at the beach.
No, it isn't.
Do you have my visual up right now?
For visual. I
Yeah,
can
can you
see
see
you.
me?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Oh,
then you
now
can
what
see-
is, that's the book we were talking about.
Right, I found it in my stack of books. I did an archaeological dig. And it's not the best book on writing. The best book on writing that I know of is William Strunk and E.B. White, The Elements of Style.
Yes.
It's out in the 4th edition on Macmillan. And it's chapter 2 is really the only thing you really need to zoom in on in that book to really improve your writing a lot. But the rest of the book, I'm sure, is helpful too. But I keep coming back over and over again to chapter 2. Now this it's called 10 Lessons in Style, 10 Lessons in Clarity and Grace. And that's by Joseph M. as in Mary Williams. And Nicholas Sturgeon, the late Nicholas Sturgeon, turned me onto this book. But what I get out of it more than the lessons and everything, because I still follow Strunk White. This is 309 pages long with the index. So it's longer than Strunk and White too. What I got out of this is just inspirational quotes to become a better writer. And they phrase the rules. They actually found good writers and they got quotes from them about writing. So that's what I got more out of it. Like the first one here in page 3 is style is the physiognomy of the mind. Arthur Schopenhauer, who's a philosopher.
Uh-huh.
And it says, to me, style is just the outside of content, and content is the inside of style. Like the outside and inside of the human body, both go together, they can't be separated. Jean-Luc Godard. And then Orwell's a great writer. The great enemy of clear language is insincerity, George Orwell. And then Oscar Wilde is a great writer. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. So they got kind of opposing.
Yes, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. So it's just nice to read all these quotes by great writers, and they have them all through the book. And then they have lessons and stuff. Like lesson 6 is emphasis, how to emphasize what you're talking about. And what Strunk and White says about that is they say, put the word you want to emphasize at the end of the sentence, because that's what's going to be left in the reader's mind after they finished reading the sentence.
Uh-huh.
And of course, there are other ways to emphasize things. You could italicize it or put it in bold or underline it or all those things. And you can put it at the end of the sentence too. So put it in all caps. There are lots of different ways of emphasizing things. Or you could say, pay special attention to this. Or I hereby emphasize the following. You can always do the
It's
slow but
great.
sure would. Slow but sure would work too. And then I don't know if you've picked up a copy of the William James biography, but it's got the chronology in there. And
No, but I'm going to. I'm going to when I get home. Yes.
Yeah, I sent you a link to that on Amazon. You might be able to get it a little cheaper on eBay. I noticed that books on eBay are a little cheaper because Amazon always
eBay.
charges.
I didn't know you could get books
Oh,
I
yeah.
read it.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper because Amazon charges you $3.99 postage for almost any book. There are a few exceptions, but on eBay, a lot of the books cost $3.99 postpaid. Because what happens is the Goodwill stores, the Salvation Army thrift stores, they post all the books that they get on eBay. Maybe they post it on
Oh,
Amazon too, but I think Amazon may charge more, and they seem to have a requirement of $3.99 postage for almost everything.
wow, I see. Well, I've got your Word document here.
Good. And you said you had trouble having two screens open at the
Ultimately,
same, or
yeah.
you just flip back and forth between the icon. You got a Word icon. Do you have your icons at the bottom or the top of your screen?
The top.
Yeah, well, there should be a Word icon with a W there. And if you click on that, it should show your Word file. And then if you click on the Zoom icon, it should show me. But I'm no great shakes, and I have a lot of glare coming through anyway. But you do get my Hawaiian shirt. I made sure I had a different Hawaiian shirt for every class. That's my motto. I have 32 different Hawaiian shirts. Some of them are missing buttons now, or they don't fit. I popped a button on some of them, but this one fits nice and comfortably. I can easily come up with 5. I wore this nice blue one last time, but I have this
No,
kind
it's
of
very nice.
tan and black this time. And I have some silk ones. It's an amazing variety of Hawaiian shirts. I go to the thrift shops when I'm looking for cheap books. And then I started to get these Hawaiian shirts. So I bought one because it was like $5 at the thrift shop. And I got all these comments from everybody because I guess it was dreary weather or something. And nobody was wearing Hawaiian shirts but me. And I got all these comments from strangers, you know, and I used to get comments when I wore a Marine hat too. I got a Marine hat just because I like the insignia. My daughter was joining the Navy. The Marines are under the Navy.
Yeah.
And but they don't really care for each other too much, apart from their professional need to care for each other. And so I started to get all people were just assuming I look like a burnt out Marine, I guess. And so people were saying, "Oh, thank you for your service." And I kept pointing out, I'm just a supporter of the Marines. Or this was back during the War on Terror was just starting. And then but I got so many comments about the Hawaiian shirts, and I figured my students. I don't sit down in class in my regular classes. In the seminar here on the Zoom, I have to sit down because I don't want to stand holding the laptop. So, but I found I can hold the students' attention more if I walk around the room and point out posters on the wall. When I'm teaching in a classroom, I put posters up every blank space I can find a poster that will fit. I'll put a poster with the philosophical quotes. So I'm using quotes more and more and more because they're nice, manageable, bite-sized bits. They're not intimidating 500-page philosophy books by Kant or somebody. Although I did write about Kant in our book, Human Solidarity.
Yes.
And Fratelli Tutti. So been a while since I'd written about him, but I found some good stuff to write about. So you want to, now that you've got the Word link with the quotes, so you, maybe for week 3, you can pick out some quotes that you want to, I mean, we can take the time and pause the recording and you could look ahead, or you could just, since you're on lecture 2, you can scroll down to the quotes from lecture 2. Anyway, they have it in order of the lecture. There are 20 lectures.
Yeah, you know, I just have this
Screen problem. You can get me off the screen. You don't need to look at me.
No.
And then look at the quotes instead, because that's what I have to do when I look at you when I click on the quotes.
What am I searching for?
Oh, I just sent you an email.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, you open the attachment, you click on the attachment twice, and it should open right up into a Word file.
It does.
All right, well, then you've got the Word file. That's all you really need to see for the rest of our session. You don't need to see me. I've already held up the books I was going to hold up. If you do need to see me, you click on the Zoom icon, but right now you're on the icon, the Word icon. And
Well, see?
what you do to answer your question, what you're looking for is you do a Control F for varieties. You do Control F, you hold the Control key down, there are two Control keys, then tap F, and then you type in varieties, and then hit Enter. And then it goes to the first varieties is not what we want, but the second variety, the second time you click it, it goes right to the quotes from the Varieties of Religious Experience from 1902. So did you click it twice?
I did.
All
But
right, it should say, then there's a blue hyperlink under that, which gives you the full, on the right, it says full text online, but you're in a Word file. So it's not going to work in a Word file. But if you were actually on the Wikipedia wiki quote site, you could click on that and read it for free. But Jerry said he bought you a hard copy of. So then you just scroll down because it's got lecture 1, religion and neurology, and then you just go to lecture 2 if you want to start there. But we haven't finished all the ones from lecture 2. Lecture 2 is circumscription of the topic.
yeah,
So we could start there, or we could go back and just take them all in order.
well,
Whatever you want to do is fine with me. I haven't memorized
I'm
these, but
having trouble with this Word document, so I'm going to have you read them. I have a book
yeah, I
here.
can do that. That's
Yeah,
fine.
and then I did get them before, but right now I'm having trouble, so
Yeah, the thing to do for next week will be to print it out,
I will.
and then you've got it right by your side. You can glance over and look at it.
Yeah,
You don't
I'll
need it.
find a printer. Yeah,
Yeah, FedEx office will print it for you. You can email it to them, and usually for less than $2, I've been able to have them print out everything I've needed.
fine.
They're pretty reasonable about printing it out for you. Okay, so you want to pick up where we left, the one after we left off with last time?
Yeah.
Or you want to
Mhm.
skip to lecture 2?
Well, why don't we go to lecture 2? That's better. Yeah.
Okay. I can do that. The first one for lecture 2, they put the first sentence in bold, and then they have another sentence after that that's not in bold. I'm not exactly sure what that's all about, but here's the first sentence. Religion, therefore, as I now ask you arbitrarily to take it, shall mean for us the feelings, acts, and experiences of individual men in their solitude. Of course, he means women as well. He's writing in a very sexist time in 1902, or lecturing in a sexist time in Edinburgh, Scotland. So far as they apprehend themselves to stand in relation to whatever they may consider the divine. So religion, therefore, as I now ask you, so he's just proposing this arbitrarily at first, and then he's going to back it up later. Maybe. I ask you now arbitrarily to take it. Religion shall mean for us the feelings, acts, and experiences of individual people in their solitude. That's kind of a weird
Yeah, I noticed that.
restriction, because a lot of people think of religion as a group activity in church or with fellowship and with other people of the same faith, or even people you're bringing into the faith or hope to bring into the faith. It's very strange that he wants to have it in their solitude. So far as they apprehend themselves to stand in relation to whatever they may consider divine. So he's got a very open-ended, inclusive there bit at the end, but of course he's sexist at the beginning. There's nobody in 1902 that I know of was saying men or women or men/women in their solitude. So far as they apprehend themselves. So it's kind of dependent on them. So if you think you're not being religious, even though other people think you are being religious, you're not going to count for James. Your feelings, acts, and experiences are not going to count as religion. Because I've heard people say, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe they mean I'm not into organized religion, but I have my own individual knockoff brand or something.
Yes, I read the quote that you just read.
Oh, you have it displayed on a screen where you can read it? Or you read it when you were reading the book, the hard copy
But I
book?
was reading the book.
Mhm. Yeah, and it stuck out to you even then, huh? Because it
Yeah.
is his conclusion. We don't know what the reasoning is because we have a therefore. Therefore is called a conclusion indicator. And it's a reverse.
Yeah.
Whatever follows the therefore is a conclusion, unless somebody's playing games and being sarcastic. But and it's a reverse premise indicator. Premises are the reasons that the arguer gives you to try to convince you of their conclusion. And the conclusion is the bottom line that the arguer gives you that they want to convert you to or reinforce you in believing. And so the premises are the reason. The premises usually come first. They don't always, but the premises usually come first. Although I ask my students, train my students to put their conclusion before and after the premises.
Oh.
I want them to have a topic sentence saying, now I will argue that UFOs are not from another planet. And then they give their argument for the rest of the paragraph. And then they remind the reader at the end. So therefore, I feel justified in my conclusion that UFOs are not from another planet. So they could give arguments about how far away it is, all the other planets, and what kind of technology would be required. And we could probably see them coming for 6 months from Mars or something. It'd have to be pretty quick to avoid our detection for 6 months. You can make all the arguments in the middle of the paragraph. So anyway, he's got therefore here, back to James. So he's just trying to define his terms, at least provisionally. And even though he's got therefore, and he suggests he had an argument when he's got therefore, he says it's arbitrary. So I don't think he really thinks he's argued very much for it. He probably just said, I don't want to call religion this, and I don't want to call it that. So therefore, I want to call it this thing instead. But it's kind of a peculiar definition. It's in one sense too narrow for me, and in another sense is too broad. Because it's too narrow. Well, of course, let's get over the men thing, because we got to make the corrections for that. And then, but solitude makes it too restrictive to me, because you could have acts and feelings and experiences in fellowship with your fellow Christians and Buddhists or whoever, or even interfaith, or even non-believers who you're hoping to convert by talking to them. That could be an experience in and of itself. It could be very meaningful, because you might rehearse all the reasons that you may have even forgotten about why you are a believer. When the other person's asking you a question, you say, yeah, I used to ask the same question, and here's what I came up with. And then you kind of remind yourself, and you refreshen your faith. Or it may have an opposite effect. You may say, yeah, that's a question I don't have an answer to, and I really should. So now I'm starting to worry a little bit more. So then you can start to doubt your faith. So that would be an experience of a faithful person too. They could start to have nagging doubts in response to other people questioning. So he's kind of walling himself off from all those kind of experiences and feelings and acts. The act of proselytizing is ruled out.
Yeah.
You don't proselytize yourself. It's kind of a weird way of talking anyway. So the whole act of proselytizing and even praying jointly with other people is ruled out. Joining someone in prayer, singing hymns in a choir or a group,
You're right. You're right.
all that
Yes.
stuff is ruled out.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And there's no reason for it that I can see, unless you just want to say, well, this is the way I want to start out, and then I'll broaden it up later. But then he's too broad at the end, because then he says, in relation to whatever they may consider the divine. So suppose they consider the almighty dollar divine, and they just want to make as much money as possible, and all their feelings, acts, and experiences as an entrepreneur or professional cat burglar, or they're supposed they worship the sun, or they worship glittering diamonds or something. So we might not really consider that religion, because you need to worship a being instead of just a physical object or a monetary unit or something, an abstract human creation like a monetary unit. So in that sense, it looks like it's too broad.
Uh-huh.
Although I don't want to really rule out somebody worshiping a cow or something, I suppose. But so I suppose it wouldn't have to be a person necessarily, but I think if someone just worships a rock, I know the Muslims go counter or clockwise, I believe, around a meteor, a black meteor, in that cube in Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still to worship Allah, who's a being.
Yeah.
Although you're not-
He goes on to talk about transcendentalism
yeah, it's American philosophy.
and
Emerson
in this
and-
chapter, I mean, and
Yeah.
and he wait a minute.
Emerson and Thoreau were the
Yes.
transcendentalists that I'm aware of.
Right. Well, you know all this, I know. But what I was going to say is
I
that
wish.
he seems to, I never knew what transcendentalism was. I had some general sense, but
Yeah.
apparently in here he quotes a long talk by Emerson, and where nature itself is divine.
Right.
So in that sense, it's not a being, right?
Right. And you could be a pantheist and everything
Yeah,
is
yeah,
identical with God, but that would include a lot of beings. And nature, there are a
right.
lot of animal, and I conceive of humans as being part of nature too. There's a song lyric I always like by a rock group called Love and Rockets, and they've got a song. They got a lyric in one of their songs: you can't go against nature, because when you do go against nature, that's part of nature too. So it's like whatever happens is part of nature. You can't really go against nature. And if you did somehow go against nature, just like have a short-term trend of going against nature, that would be part of the longer trend tendencies in nature. So there's a sense in which you can't go against nature because you're in nature, you're of nature,
Yes.
you're part of nature. And this is especially easy to believe if you believe in evolution, as I do. My mother always thought it was a big unnecessary argument. They said, well, God can create us, but why can't he use evolution to create us? It's his show. He can do it any way he wants to. So, but if you interpret the Bible literally, it'd be a much harder feat. They have the young earth literal interpretation of the Bible where they count up all the generations and they come to about 6,000 years. Although some of the people lived to like over 900 years old, like Methuselah and like Noah's grandfather or something, Methuselah, I think. Was that the grandfather of Noah, Methuselah? I think it was.
I don't remember.
It's either the father or the grandfather. I think it was the grandfather. And Noah himself lived a ripe old age of hundreds of years, as I recall. So, so you could interpret it literally, or I interpret it figuratively. You know, the walking on water seems like it would be hard to pull off. Although I have seen frogs run across the water with surface tension. They have video of frogs running across the water. And of course, there are water bugs that skate right along the surface tension of the water. But it's pretty amazing those frogs can run across water.
It is.
Yeah, you wouldn't think they'd be able to manage it, but the surface tension. So yeah, and the second part, you want me to read the second sentence in that
Please, yes.
passage? But yeah, I'll have to look into Transcendentalism more. I don't have much to say about it at the moment, although I got the impression from Thoreau and Emerson before I read the second sentence here that, yeah, it was more individualistic and they were isolating themselves in solitude on Walden Pond and all that. That they didn't have a bunch of, traveling troubadours come in and put on a show for them or anything that I'm aware of.
Could I just pause for a minute?
Sure, yeah.
There is in Thomas Merton's writings, and I haven't, I don't recall where it's quoted, where he had this mystical experience. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Probably Seven Story Mountain. I'm just guessing though.
Well,
he might write about mystical experiences elsewhere, but I think in Seven Story Mountain he writes about it.
Well, he was on the corner of a street in Louisville, and he had this experience in the midst of a crowd of seeing the divine in every person.
Yeah.
And so that I just wanted to mention that in the context of what you were talking about, limiting the mystical to solitude.
Yeah, and he's limiting religion to solitude. Not just mystical religion, but all religion, which seems to be a colossal mistake right off the bat, and almost off the bat in lecture 2. Sophomoric mistake there, but if he's just getting warmed up, he's only in lecture 2, to the beginning of lecture 2 of 20. So he might want to take a narrow range, like a cross section of religion, start off with, and then he can kind of broaden it out after that. So I don't want to be too harsh on him early on. And he says he's being arbitrary, just like it's like a thought experiment, like, and then the ordinary part fits in with the phenomenology and the Mount Rushmore of James, people who are influenced by James, Bertrand Russell and Ludwig Wittgenstein, John Dewey, and then Edmund Husserl. And Husserl, he's a phenomenologist, and they emphasize the importance of everyday things. And I remember listening to Paul McCartney's music back in the 70s, and he just had song after song where he would talk about ordinary wine, or he used the word ordinary a lot on this London Town album from 1978. I said, why is he talking about ordinary things? I mean, he should be singing about Michelle or singing about something extraordinary like his regrets and yesterday. And why is he suddenly singing song after song about the ordinary? But apparently that's a bit of a movement. That you kind of celebrate the ordinary, the little thing. It's sort of like Kitty Kalin from 1954. Little things mean a lot. That was #1 for 9 consecutive weeks, as I recall. So it's a little before my time. I'm a 1958 model, like the Edsel, but I remember listening to Kitty Kalin and Little Things Mean a Lot. It's kind of one of my early unofficial mottos. And I also like the Essex did a song called Easier Said Than Done. I think that's from the early 60s. So I used to go to the pinball, pardon my digression. I used to go to the arcade and play these pinball and baseball machines where you pitch the metal ball out of the middle and hit it with a little plastic bat and try to knock it into the single hole or the double hole or the home run hole or the triple hole before you hit the out hole, which was always a bigger hole. And if you could get 26 runs, you'd get a stuffed animal. So I was pretty good at it. And I used
My
to
goodness.
stuffed animals, but you used to be able to play the jukebox while you were playing. And so I used to put a quarter, or actually it was probably a nickel back then, put a nickel in, and there was a nickel in my dad's day, the Buffalo nickels, but yeah, I think it was a dime. And although the dimes were silver back then, 90% silver. And I used to play Easier Said Than Done. And one person finally picked up on it and said, "This guy is getting in like a trance. He's playing." I was getting in my own individual solitude. Although I had people all around me, and buzzing lights to distract you. And they got the stuffed animals right in front of you, distracting you. So you'll look up and not see the ball and swing, and you get bored, swinging at it over and over. But you can get into like a trance-like state. So I would play Kitty K, Little Things Mean a Lot. And I would try to hit a single every time down the right side. I'd swing really late. And that would make it impossible for me to hit one of the two out holes. And the other out hole was blocked off partly by a metal ramp that you could try to hit the ball up the ramp and into the home run area. But I never tried to do that. I'd hit a home run every once in a while by mistake. But so you can get into like a trance-like state using music, and you can try to celebrate the ordinary or the little things. It doesn't have to be a momentous thing.
Well,
So,
maybe his talking about religious experience in the context of solitude, maybe he's referring in part to this trance state. Do you think, in the context of being in a larger group?
Yeah, so that's true. You could be, it wouldn't have to be your physical solitude. You could just be mentally walled off, I suppose.
I'm
But it
just
still
putting
seems like
my,
it's, what?
I'm putting my hearing aid went out. I'm just putting my other hearing, the battery in.
Okay, we'll
So
take
I'm
the-
listening.
okay. So solitude wouldn't necessarily have to be physical solitude. I suppose you could be like on the corner in Louisville and having a solitary experience in the crowd. Or you could be
That's
like
what I was
me.
thinking.
You could be like me and ensconced at your pinball machine and zeroed in like a laser on the little shiny metal ball
Mhm.
coming out of the hole. And then you have to swing your bat. I used to get like blisters, and I used to have to put
Oh
Band-Aids
my
on.
God.
Yeah, I used to have put Band-Aids on. Nobody thought anybody would go to those lengths to get the stuffed animal. So they were making a lot of money because nobody but me was actually taking it that seriously. But I won like, maybe 100 stuffed animals over the course of a summer.
My God.
I'd give them to my girlfriend at the time and everything. I was like, well, I was pretty young. I started out maybe 8 or 9, but I was still playing it when I was about 15, and I had a girlfriend and everything. I had all these stuffed animals. They used to hate to see me coming. Oh, it was a limit of 3 a day. The most you could win was 3 a day because they knew there were some ringers like me.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, I could win. It only cost like a dime or a quarter to play. And so I used to spend like 75 cents and I'd have three stuffed animals.
My God, Sterling.
Yeah, and I'd have hours of zoned out fun looking at a little metal ball. I can still see it. So, although I wouldn't call it a religious experience, but it was a solitary kind of experience.
Yeah.
In a crowd, and with a noisy crowd and everything. I just zoned all that out.
Right.
But I would play the repetitive music over and over again. So I'd lose a quarter or a nickel or dime there. But I kind of enjoyed it. I wouldn't do it all the time, but when I felt like I needed to get in the zone, I'd put that music on that I liked.
Mm-hmm. Did you use that zone in any other way in your life? Do you think of,
Well, I suppose if you're having an intimate conversation or more with someone that you love, I suppose there's that kind of zone. You have they have your full attention when you're intimate with them or having an intimate conversation. So there's that.
yeah.
And I guess reading is pretty solitary, or you can read in a circle and have a book club, and you can take turns reading. In my class, I'll have students take turns reading a long quote. Like I'll have each student read a sentence or something of a quote. That way I'm sure they've read at least that sentence.
Yeah.
You never really know how much reading your students are doing at the community college.
Right.
Any college or university, really. So I would go around the room and kind of whet their appetite or get them broken in. It was a way for me to test whether they were being challenged by it or not and needed extra help too. So it was I was doing a recon mission, reconnoitering the class by having them take turns. And some people are just terrified of that too. Public speaking is still, I think, listed as number one in the list of phobias.
Yes.
So that's one way to help people kind of either realize they have that phobia so they can take steps to undo that or mitigate that. Or maybe they can even get over it just by, confronting their fear and reading in class. So I try to read it in class. But apart from those kind of situations, or if you're going around in a book circle, reading is usually solitary.
Mm-hmm.
And so you like to think that you're totally zoned in. I mean, it's easy to have it broken by a phone call or somebody coming into the room, but you could be really engrossed in a book. I don't read nonfiction very much. But I'm told that there's certain works of fiction that are just really breakneck speed. I think someone told me, and I sort of remember reading a bit of it, Portrait of a Lady by Henry James, the brother of William James. That's kind of written in such an engrossing way. And movies are like that too. When you're watching a movie, you kind of zone out the crowd. You might be going to the movies with somebody, but if you're going to the movies alone, I thought about doing that last night. Actually, I haven't seen the new Tom Cruise, Val Kilmer, Need for Speed, a sequel to the original movie about the Fly Boys. I forget the name of it, and I haven't seen Nope, the UFO film by a new director, relatively new director, so that I like. So black director, his name escapes me. It's something like Pepper or something. But and the name of the Tom Cruise film is escaping me too.
Top Gun 2 or
something. That's it. Yeah, Top Gun and Top Gun 2. Yeah. So I almost went to that last night because I'm home alone, Maria. So everybody's going off on summer vacation but me. I'm the head of security. And
I guess so.
Professional house sitter, and don't even have any dogs as my wingmen or women here. I usually have a couple of dogs, but Tina got rid of our dogs, unfortunately, because we moved to a place that didn't accept a dog.
Oh.
And you can be, well, it's not zoned out by yourself, but if you're taking your dog for a walk or something, you kind of can focus entirely on the dog. But
yes, yeah.
For at least brief moments until somebody else walks by. It's usually not that intense, but reading can be very intense. So yeah, I guess I have it to answer your question. Yeah, I have other intense periods of solitude as well. And I am an only child. And so I used to play Risk by myself. I never really played solitaire, but I used to play chess against a machine that my dad bought for me back when I was a big fan of Bobby Fischer.
Uh-huh.
And so I got a few of his books, and you can get engrossed in a chess game.
Yes.
And if you're an only child, I guess it's easier if you have no siblings to distract you. So yeah, I've had that sort of experience. I don't know about a street corner. I don't think I've had it on a street corner, but I've had it in a busy arcade with bells going off and whistles and lights flashing and stuffed bears staring at you and people commenting on you. So these people found it endlessly amusing that I would play Easier Said Than Done by the Essex. And they would keep singing Easier Said Than Done while I was hitting this little metal ball up the side of the machine into the single slot all the time. So if somebody finally put 2 and 2 together and figured out it was me who was playing that song, people would come around and watch it. I was sort of like a pinball wizard, like the song from The Who, although I wasn't a deaf, dumb, and blind kid, but I would zone in and people would come all around and they'd, but in a way it got me to focus even more because I knew it was important what I was doing. So I would just really, I didn't want to let them down, hit an out, when they were all crowding around. Like when I got to 24, 25 runs, you had to get to 26 runs. When you got over 20 runs, people would start to see that and they'd come over and they'd say, well, I wonder if he can make it or something.
Yeah.
And then they finally picked up that I was playing the song on the jukebox, Easier Said Than Done.
Yeah.
And I used to play Kitty Kalin's Little Things Mean a Lot too. Okay, so let's do the second sentence here. Since the relation may be, you're recording this or?
It is recording, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's right. I got a little caution there that's recording. So I just wanted to double check. And then, so let me read the second sentence here. Since the relation may be either moral, physical, or ritual, it is evident that out of religion, in the sense in which we take it, theologies, philosophies, and ecclesiastical organizations may secondarily grow. So what jumps out at you about that? I have some ideas, but let's let you kick things off.
Could you read it again?
Oh yeah, sure, Ryan. I forgot you're waiting for me to read. Since the relation may be either moral, physical, or ritual, it is evident that out of religion, in the sense in which we take it, theologies, philosophies, and ecclesiastical organizations may secondarily grow.
Grow?
Yeah, grow. You want me to read it one more time? Third time's the charm. Since I'll cut out some of the inessential words. Since the relation may be either moral, physical, or ritual, it is out of religion in the sense we're taking it, that theologies, philosophies, and ecclesiastical organizations may secondarily grow. So, in other words, he's saying the primary growth or the primary origin is this solitude
Yes.
of
Yeah.
individual men, but secondarily, you can have theologies, philosophies, and ecclesiastical organizations grow as a secondary matter. Oh, I got to plug my laptop in. Hold on. Somehow it got unplugged. There we go. Back in business. So why don't you kick things off? What word do you want to?
Well, what comes to me, and I don't know that this quote comes from this section, but at one point he was talking about George Fox, the founder of Quaker, the Quaker religion.
Yeah, Society of Friends, right.
and how his experiences were the basis of this, I guess in this case, you'd say ecclesiastical growth.
Right.
And secondarily, and I wonder, for example, if I don't know what George Fox's experiences were actually. Maybe they'll come up later in the book, or maybe I have to read it separately. But you know, I always think of the Quakers refusing to go to war. And so I wonder if that was part of his initial experience, was such a reverence for all forms of life, if somehow that came to him. And then it later developed into an, you know, a premise of the religion of Quaker. I'm not sure, you know.
Yeah, well, the Quakers, they live in small communities and pretty intensive community activity from what I know about them. Usually farm communities and that I'm aware of. Maybe it's a stereotype, but I wouldn't think that the Quakers are your best bet for solitary prayer and, you know, I would think the better choices would be like the Christian mystics, like we mentioned Saint Teresa of Avila last time. I think she's having these ecstasies on her own there. She doesn't have anybody else there, whether putting her head between her legs and alternating nostrils in her breathing and depriving herself of food or water. I think it was mainly food she deprived herself of, and oxygen.
Well,
And
she
yeah, the
had,
mystics of the East too, were these, and maybe the Sufis in the Islamic tradition might be a better bet than the Quakers for solitude. But
well, you know, I remember reading a couple of years ago, Saint Teresa's Castle. What is the name of that book? The Inner Castle. I'm not sure, but it talked about her having a religious experience walking down the hall in the monastery.
Interesting.
That a statue that she had passed many times, all of a sudden, just broke open her heart. Now those are my words, but that's what happened. And she used to talk about God in the pots and pans in the kitchen.
Well, that's interesting.
So she had many different experiences. But I do know that he stresses George Fox having this, you know, as an example of what he's talking about with the Quakers.
The book you had in mind is The Interior Castle.
Yes, that's what it is. The Interior Castle. I love that book.
Huh. I haven't read that one. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. She talks about these different stages, you know, when we first enter, how we bring aspects of ourselves, you know, whether it's distractions or, you know, attachments to sweets or, you know, or predispositions to judgment, or, you know, how when we first enter the first level of the castle, we bring this all in with us. And I forget what she likens them to. But anyway, and then, you know, you become more disciplined or more enamored with God's love or more focused in meditation, all those things. But it's a wonderful book. And there are newer translations of it or interpretations of it.
Oh. Yeah, it's got Kavanaugh as the
Yes,
translator.
Kavanaugh, yeah.
Yeah, is the translator there. So I'll have to check that out. I read that. I took a course in mysticism at the University of Maryland, a secular school teaching religious mysticism by a guy named Dennis Ahern, Ahern. But I think he left the profession. He went into computers. He probably made out pretty well for himself. This was back in the 70s. And so he ended up getting divorced, and they had a child that threw him for a loop, and he kind of left. He left us in the lurch. Basically, we had to teach. It was a seminar, and
my
he had to
goodness.
stop teaching. He just wasn't emotionally up to it. And I remember we had at least 1 or 2 meetings before they canceled the class or brought somebody else in to finish up. Of course, we had 1 or 2 meetings just on our own. So, and then I think I tried to look at him. He used to write on David Hume. He got me interested in David Hume, who's still my favorite philosopher, despite a lot of problems with him. So I just like his writing style, and he's got a sense of humor, which goes far in my book. And he's writing in English, and it's not like Shakespearean English where you need like commentaries to really appreciate it. So he's writing in an English that I can understand, I think.
What book of his would you recommend?
Well, I think the dialogues might be the best one. 3 dialogues, the dialogues concerning natural religion would be what I would recommend the most.
Good.
And they were published posthumously by his friend Adam Smith. Got those published for him because he would have gotten into some trouble. But he's kind of tricky, David Hume. He when he writes against miracles and everything, and sort of the literal interpretation of the Bible, then he says it's a good thing. Then at the end of the book or the end of the article, he'll say something like, it's a good thing we have rational theology of Aquinas and everything, so because we can't rely on miracles or something. And then when he writes against rational theology, he says, oh, it's a good thing we got miracles because this rational theology is not working out. And then you can never really put those 2 pieces together because he published one of them posthumously. So, but he was denied a chair in moral philosophy, I think from the University of Edinburgh, because he was an atheist, or they thought he was an atheist. So I think he was an atheist, but he wouldn't let on that he was an atheist, and he believed in morality, and politics and everything. He believed in being engaged in the world and trying to improve it. And he had a great reputation of like never getting into a fight with anybody, never having a cross word to say. But he did get into a fight finally with Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau was going to come over and stay with Hume, but they stayed together a little while. And apparently Rousseau was really quite a nasty piece of work. He was Catholic, French Catholic, and he was married to a Catholic, and his wife was mentally challenged, and he used to get her to clean up after him and cook him. I think I may have mentioned this last week. To clean up, he would say the Pope is coming for dinner, and he would amuse himself, see her scurrying around. Did I mention this last week?
No.
Oh, okay. I was talking about it with with somebody else recently, and I think they had something like 4 or 6 kids, and he gave them all up for adoption.
Oh my God.
Terrible. You can imagine her pain at doing that, but somehow he managed to put them all up for adoption. But he would have her, and then he would say at the end, oh, the Pope had to cancel, he's so busy, please forgive the Pope. So, oh, I forgive the Pope, and then he would have a great meal, and plenty of it, because they're portions for 2 people or 3 people. and have fun with the leftovers, I guess, too. And he just enjoyed himself. And he'd have a nice clean house because she would clean up everything and tidy up, and he would abuse her. And he would do it more than once, like every, I got the impression he would do it like every couple of months or something. The Pope was
My
coming.
God.
He didn't want to do it too much. I guess you might catch on, but it was always believable that the Pope had to cancel at the last minute since he's such a busy fellow. So apparently Rousseau is not easy to get along with. He's a pretty exploitative person. And so he finally got into a fight with Rousseau. But apparently it was Rousseau's fault.
You reminded me when you mentioned you took a course in mysticism, that there is a university in Spain, I think it's in Madrid, that is specifically on mysticism, the whole university. I was quite surprised to hear that. A Spaniard friend of ours told us that. And I'm making a note to follow up on it.
Yeah, if you give a link for it or the name of it, I could look it up. It'd be interesting. If I disappear for a year or two, you'll know what happened to me. So, became a cloistered monk at the Mysticism University. So the book I remember was called Exploring Mysticism by Fritz Stahl. And the cover is one of the most beautiful, it's a photograph of one of the most beautiful statues I've ever seen. Bernini, I thought I did mention to you, Bernini's last week. Bernini's statue of Saint Teresa. Yeah, and that's one of the most beautiful statues I've ever seen. But there's an Eastern one of the Buddha, and it's on the cover. I've seen other photographs from different angles where it's not as beautiful, but this particular angle of the Buddha that they capture in the photograph, it's one of the most beautiful statues or photographs of a statue that I've seen. It's against a black background. It's kind of a golden tan, and just the expression on the Buddha's face. Of course, the expressions of Saint Teresa in Bernini's, I think it's called the Ecstasy or something, is amazing, and the hands and everything are so great with Bernini, and the flowing, habit that she's wearing as well. All the folds and the amazing kind of curves and the folds in her clothing that he was able to do in marble. It's amazing the kind of work that he did. And so he's probably my favorite sculptor. It's hard to say no to Rodin, but I did early art history work on Auguste Rodin, and in Stanford they have all the Rodin sculptures and everything.
Yes.
Hell and the Burghers of Calais and everything. But I just got to say Bernini's the best for me. He speaks to me. His work calls me more. But if you look at the cover of Fritz Stahl, Staal, Exploring Mysticism, and the version of the book I had nice glossy photographic plates inside, but now they're all kind of grainy paper. But if you can find one of the older editions that has the plates where they're glossy and everything, those things are suitable for framing. You can pull them out of the spine, and some people consider that sacrilegious to tear apart a book, but you can take the plates out and frame them, put them up on the wall. They're that good. And it's not meant to be a picture book, but it's got an insert or two inserts, kind of a wraparound in the binding of these photographic plates. And the cover itself is just amazing. And I don't know the name of the sculpture. I think he must identify it. That's on the cover. But I've seen other photographs of it, not in that book, but elsewhere. It didn't look as good. No, different angle. And it didn't look as good full face. The expression on the Buddha's face didn't strike me as much, but they're coming in from the Buddha's left side on the cover of the book. And he looks so serene. I think his head is tilted slightly down. and his eyes are eyelids are closed. Eyes are closed, and he just looks. And it's got the slight. It's like a Mona Lisa smile type of thing, type of action going on. No teeth, you know, not a toothy smile on the Buddha there. And just the whole mood that it captures is very very moving, I thought. So check that out.
Now, see, there's another thing that you're talking about. Your experience of that photo, right? I mean, I'm sure that you've looked at it more than once.
Oh yeah.
But I'm thinking maybe one of the times it was deeply, what do you want to say? Mystical, religious? I don't know.
Certainly moving.
Yes.
And it made me want to have that, whatever, I'll have what he's having, kind of.
Yes.
So, you know, waitress or waiter, I'll order what he had. He's got this sublime smile on his face, and he seems to be in some kind of, not the kind of a rapturous ecstasy that Saint Teresa was, but a quiet kind of contentment.
Yes. Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The different kind of thing, but they're both great. I mean, they're both wonderful works of art.
Yes.
And I don't know who did that sculpture. It might be by an anonymous sculptor, you know, back millennia ago. I really don't know, but it was very well preserved. It didn't have damage on it the way so many Greek statues. Those Greeks had better care of their things there. So keep the barbarians at the gate from smashing everything up. They should have sued for peace. Just don't break our marble, you know.
Yeah, right.
You can have our grain, but just let us save our marble statues. Don't bust it all up. And there's horrible things. What was it, during the Reformation or something, where the Protestants would go along and knock the heads off all the Catholic statues of the saints? Just
I didn't know that.
Yeah, knock the heads off of them, just to be nasty. Of course, today we tear the whole statue down of Robert E. Lee and all the Confederates and everything. And I don't think we've renamed all the forts yet. I think there's still some U.S. forts named after Confederates, but I don't know why we would name our forts after treasonous people, but we did. So. Okay, well, I don't know that we really, let me check out the second sentence again of this quote. I like the very thorough job we do with these quotes. We're still on quote number 1.
I thought we went to 2.
Well, we skipped to lecture 2, but we're still on quote 1 of lecture 2. We're on the second sentence of the quote.
Yes.
But I like doing
lecture 2,
proper,
right.
thorough job of it here. Since the relation may be either moral, physical, or ritual, you don't have any problem with that, do you? See, he's inclusive there, that the relation, it goes back to standing in a relation with whatever you consider to be divine. So that relation could be moral, physical, or ritual. So that seems like a wise move on James's part to have it expansive. You're trying to get a definition that captures all and only religion. And there's so many different religions and so many billions of religious people that you'd want it to be pretty damn expansive. So moral and physical and ritual, that seems to cover, I guess you could have spiritual that's not ritualistic and that's not moral. You could have metaphysical. So it's still not really expansive enough. Physical, you would think would cover at least half of it, but then you need to capture the mental side of things. If he had said mental and physical, he'd have all his bases covered. Or if he had said spiritual and physical, he might have, but he has moral and ritual. But you could be in a non-ritual situation that's not physical. It could be a mental, it could be a prayer, but not really a ritual. Or it could be singing a hymn that's not really ritualistic in any way, or just singing a religious song. It's not really a hymn, but it's just like a religious song, or or he could be making an argument. That's not really ritualistic. And it might not be a moral argument, it could be a metaphysical argument
Uh-huh.
for the existence of God.
Yeah, right.
But he
Yeah.
doesn't seem, so it's still not really, it sounds expansive,
Because-
moral, physical, and ritual, but that's because you kind of think of moral as mental or something. And ritual seems to cover a lot of ground, but you could be spontaneous and not ritualistic at all. In the
Yeah,
moment, spontaneously arguing with an atheist or with a fellow Christian about a piece of doctrine that has nothing to do with morality. It could, like the doctrine of the real presence, the transubstantiation, whether the wine actually turns into the blood of Christ or not, and the bread wafer actually turns into the flesh of Christ or not. You could have that argument. Well, that would be about a ritual, though. But it could be about a ritual. The argument could be about a ritual without actually itself being a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
It could be about a doctrine of the church or the Trinity or, the passion of Christ or what it symbolizes or doesn't symbolize. So you could have all that stuff going on that's not really moral, physical, or ritual. So I guess I do have a core. I looked pretty good there initially because you've got three different things going.
Yeah.
You gotta watch out for that. There's these, the human mind seems to like threes a lot. Comedians point this out too, that when you tell jokes, it's kind of a list of three. If you go beyond three, and the human mind, that's why the phone numbers are like sets of 3 and 4. Once you get past 3, the human mind has a hard time memorizing it. So it's good to memorize, but writers pick up on that and they kind of limit themselves to 3 or maybe 4 things, but maybe it has to be a longer list. But it just looks like bad writing when you have more than 3. It doesn't look as elegant.
Oh,
But you might need more than 3,
yeah.
depending on what you're talking about. He's talking about religion. It's a pretty big subject, so
Yeah.
I think he's going to need more than 3. But a lot of times writers are just kind of trapped in trying to appear like they know what they're talking about and appear elegant. So it is evident out of religion, in this sense, that they may secondarily grow. He doesn't say that's the only way they can grow, though. He just says that that's one
Yeah.
way they may grow. So
Yeah.
he's really not saying much of anything in that second sentence. And he doesn't say they may be only moral, physical, or ritual. He just says they may be. So whenever you use may, that's what we call a weasel word. He's got the word may in there twice. Since the relation may be either moral, physical, or ritual, it is evident that out of religion, in a sense in which we take it, theologies, philosophies, and ecclesiastical organizations may secondarily grow. Well, thanks a lot. I mean, we knew that going in. Monkeys may fly out of my butt, Marita, but nobody's worried about that. So a lot of things may happen. I may win the lottery. In fact, I may win.
So.
Yeah, so I may win the lottery, lose the ticket, and then win the lottery the next day. So a lot of things may happen, but I wouldn't worry about all these remote possibilities. What when you're writing, you need to indicate the frequency if you can. If you could say often or very often. That's one of the most important things I learned in undergraduate is how to modulate my emphasis. This is going back to the emphasis lesson number 6 in lesson 6 in the style book by Joseph Williams. One, you have to emphasize, is it happen frequently, very frequently, almost always, rarely, very infrequently, almost never. So you got all those quantitative words. And this guy's a scientist, much more than I'll ever be, William James. So he's trained in the sciences, in the medical sciences, anatomy. You're supposed to be able to be precise, but he's kind of waxing imprecise here. So anything else on quote number 1?
No, I don't think so.
now that we have 15 minutes left. So, but I'm not worried about the time. Did we start right at 9? Or pretty close to it, I suppose. We can go a little over to make sure we
Yeah.
cover it. You don't have a little ticker on your recording that says how many minutes, but we were recording maybe a little early because Jerry clicked record and then.
That's right, he did. He did.
No, actually, well, he did, but then I think you actually got on and then I clicked got it. But yeah, but anyway, we can go a little past 10:30 if it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
What you want to do. All right, well, you want to move on to the next one then?
Great.
Okay, this is a short one here. We ought to be able to make mincemeat out of this one. But it's got 3 ellipsis dots, dot, 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 religion, dot, 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 is a man's total reaction upon life. And of course, we got to make the adjustment for women too here. Religion is a man's total reaction upon life. A reaction upon life, not a reaction to life. So what do you make about that one? What do you make of that one? Religion is a man's total reaction upon life.
Upon life, upon maybe being alive, huh? Upon the fact, the experience of being alive is so awe-provoking.
True, yeah, that would work. And I was thinking about reflecting back upon your life, but you could be religious well before the end of your life where you're reflecting back. You could be a child and be religious. So, well, yeah, it wouldn't have to be a man in the first place. I mean, not apart from the women issue where he's writing in sexist language, but it could be a child. There's no reason.
Yes, I understand. Yes.
But Christopher Hitchens, the atheist, I met him one time with Tina in San Francisco. Just stumbled into him. He at a cafe, but he wrote in his book "God is Not Great," trying to provoke the Muslims. God is not great, but he was a great writer too. You can learn a lot about writing from him. Christopher Hitchens.
Mm-hmm.
And he's such a great conversationalist and debater too, although he definitely got ad hominem at times, but in an amusing way, not too far over the line. So he said that it's a mistake to talk about a Christian child or a Muslim child. He said children can't really make an informed decision, so you really shouldn't be able to pin a label on them. But of course, at Catholic school, that's what it's all about, and at least not all about, but it's the major.
Mm-hmm.
What's the expression? You give me a child before 8 and I'll give you the man or the person. So give me the person in their formative years and I'll give you a well-formed person. So can't remember who said it. It's just maybe an adage of religious schooling. So that's another, he's not inclusive enough here, writing in 1902, not just because of the gender issue, but you could have religious children. I don't have a problem calling a child a Christian child or a Muslim child or a Buddhist child, but Christopher Hitchens thought it was imposing categories on the child unfairly, and that they could be exposed to different religions, but they can't really have been said to have made a decision that is worth a damn about, and they can't really opt into a religion until they reach a certain age or maturity. So what do you think about that? Or this?
Well, I'm glad we're talking about it because my faith means a lot to me. I mean, I don't know if that's a good way of stating it, but I enter deeply into my faith. Now, I was born, quote, a Catholic. And that early upbringing, and my mother was a very, at times I've said, I feel like she lived in the presence of God. And I don't mean that in an esoteric way, but that it was alive in her. Her faith was alive. She had many challenges. And I guess I feel I've benefited so much, and I'm so grateful for that. And when I went to Ireland, and I went to the only Catholic church in my grandfather's, great-grandfather's town of Tremor, I just had this experience of how fortunate I was that the faith was handed down. Now, I do a lot of interfaith work, and I am inspired, for example, by the Muslim practice of fasting, which I cannot, I mean, I don't know what I would need to do it. But, you know, they start very young. I mean, the children start early in that. So I guess I'm just, if I were born into a Jewish family and they were practicing Jews, I imagine my personality is such that I would get deeply into that religious belief, which, you know, again, I admire. I don't know if you know the work of, and I'm trying to think of, oh darn it, I wrote about it in an article I did that was published. But it's a woman who was an anthropologist. She was Jewish. And she worked in LA with Holocaust survivors who were in their later years. And they came to realize, I really want to share this with you. They came to realize, although they were poor and as older people, they were ignored, you know, that their role was to carry on the tradition. It's a very moving book. It was made into a play. It was made into an art exhibit. And I'm just blanking on it now.
Yeah.
But again, I feel I guess what I'm trying to say, Sterling, is that I'm very grateful that as a child, I was brought up in a tradition that I entered deeply into. And if I were Jewish, I would imagine that I would have entered deeply into it. Not necessarily been Orthodox, but into the body, the Kabbalah, or into, and the same with Buddhism. And I welcome the opportunity to meet with and share with people to find out what's of deep meaning to them. And whether it's religious or otherwise. So what I'm saying is really in relationship to Hutchings, that experience of growing up close to the experience of a religion is very important. You don't just start that as a college student or something. You know, because as you brought out earlier, you're being formed from an early age. So anyway, that's my response.
Yeah, I was raised in the Protestant branch of Christianity, and I've kept that, but not literal. But I was never raised as a literalist anyway. But in my classes, I run into a lot of the literal young Earth, anti-evolution people who I need to touch up their critical thinking skills as my job, and so those are the people I tend to be arguing with in class and so forth. And I've reviewed books on religion too. There's one called Moral Vision, I think, that I reviewed on religion. So, but then I married a Buddhist, so I kind of tried to graft, put my special blend of Christianity and Buddhism together. I think it can be done, and
I do too. I do too.
published a chapter in my book on the Beatles and critical thinking. The Beatles as kind of the marketing thing, and it is the biggest part of the book. But I talk about the JFK assassination and the lunar landings. These things that people have conspiracy theories about, and whether Paul McCartney was dead or the Beatles were somehow manufactured by big corporate entities, and that's why they were so successful, not because they were so talented. And they just replaced Paul McCartney when he wouldn't play ball or something. And then the Vietnam War. And then the Vietnam War, I tried to show how just war theory, which is a Catholic doctrine, could be squared with Buddhism, because Ho Chi Minh, although he lies in state, I've actually met him. He didn't have a lot to say when I met him, but he's lying in state there in Hanoi. It's very chilly in that room. And they kicked out one of the members in our party who wanted to go in because she was wearing short shorts, and one of Tina's cousins. And so she had to go out and buy some pants and put them on before she could get back in line. And they wanted the respectful thing. So he's lying there with his hands on his thighs. And but he had a funeral that was a Buddhist funeral. So even though his body, and he gave instructions not to have his body preserved or anything, but they did it anyway. And he died in 1969, I think in December, and maybe November actually. And then, but they had a funeral for him, and there are photographs in museums that are still displayed. And so I always wondered, well, how did he get these Buddhists?
Yes,
and there's some Catholics too, of course, because of the French colonial influence. How did he get them to fight so hard and so long and so well from a Buddhist tradition, or even from a just war Catholic tradition? Now, of course, in communism, they're atheistic and they're fighting. But even then, if it's all materialistic, how do you motivate somebody? You're not as a grunt out there in the field crawling around on your stomach getting shot at and eating rats or whatever to get by. When you're surrounded, how are you going to motivate somebody to do that year after year? So the amazing motivational skills of this guy, but it turns out he did have this Buddhist aspect to him. And so maybe there was some promise of getting good karma or something in doing it. Of course, if you bomb somebody and kill all their family members and leave them alive, that will motivate you. I think maybe the Americans did most of the motivating by My Lai and having massacres. Just, we had to destroy the village to save the village, that kind of mentality. So if you burn down somebody's hut, and that hut is all they've had there for their family for 5 generations or something or more, you're going to motivate the survivors to really come after you, I would imagine. Just human nature not to take kindly to that sort of thing. And maybe their Buddhism wouldn't hold them up. But anyway, I found these intersections, about 12 intersections between just war theory allowing violence and Buddhism allowing violence. So there are some loopholes in Buddhism for violence. And there have been Buddhist warring monks in China and Tibet and so forth. So I tried to get into that. And the Zen Buddhists, I think I mentioned last week, the Zen Buddhists were very militaristic in we banned the Japanese religion. I think it was Shintoism. I have to double check that though. But Zen Buddhism we didn't ban, but apparently the Zen Buddhists were very militaristic and egged on the kamikaze type tactics and a bonsai, gung-ho, jingoistic militarism of the Imperial Japanese during World War II. So, but it's interesting what you said about that experience that, and it's Christopher Hitchens, by the way, Hitchen. I think you said Hutchins.
Hitchens.
Christopher Hitchens, yeah. They called him Hitch for short. But you mentioned that, was it a saint who was going down the hall and had the experience?
Saint Teresa, yeah.
Oh, it was Saint Teresa. Okay. So, yeah, again, that's the ordinary turning into the extraordinary.
Yes.
So that seems to be a theme that we're developing in this James seminar, that
yes,
there's something extraordinary just in the ordinary. And if you just look for it, it's like the spirituality is hiding in plain sight, kind of idea. So that's something that we should try to build on and look to build on. That occurred to me, but I didn't have a chance to say it because the ideas were flowing so freely and so well here, that I just wanted to mention that. So
I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. And it kind of goes back to Kitty's song too, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. And little things mean a lot.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, I put a poster up in my room. I mentioned I put posters up in my room.
Yes.
And one of them didn't have any quotes. It was just a picture of JFK sitting in the limo with his wife, Jackie, and he was touching her hair, and she had the biggest smile on her face, and he was just, with his left hand, he was reaching out and touching a curl of her hair, like to move it away so he could see her face. And it was the same, limo where he was killed.
Murdered, yeah.
And so
My, how powerful. How
Yeah.
powerful, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
little things mean a lot.
Mm.
Partly because you don't know how many more you'll have, I guess. So about reacting upon life, it's kind of an odd phrase. I would say reacting to life,
Mhm.
but he's got a medical background, so it's kind of like a chemical reacting upon something. So maybe
yeah.
if you read it that way, religion is a man's total reaction upon life. So maybe it's like our total body reaction upon life. Of course, he doesn't say, it's just one single claim. He doesn't give us any reason for believing it. So I don't know how much we can make of it. Did you have anything more on that? Religion is a man's total reaction upon life?
No, except it brings to me something which I wish I felt, and that is more of a sense of awe at being alive. I mean, I take a lot for granted as I move through my day.
Yes,
Oh,
the Scottish proverb is be happy because you're a long time dead. So that's the more secular Scottish tradition. The traditional Scottish conclusion is not proven. So I kind of identify with my Scottish heritage. The four grandparents for me are Voss, which is German, and Harwood, which is Scottish or Northern England. And really, I think it's Scottish. And then Howard, which is English, and Sterling, which is English. So Anglo-Saxon heritage. But I kind of identify with the Scottish bit of my heritage more than the others. So they're kind of skeptical and not proven. And you better be happy because you're a long time dead. So and I think they're assuming annihilation there in that proverb, but my students really like that one. One of them asked me to give them, I bring these the whiteboards one advantage that whiteboards have over blackboards is that they're magnetically sensitive. You can put fridge magnets. I buy fridge magnets with quotes on them.
Oh,
I'll put them up on the whiteboard. You can just click them right on there and have the students come up to them in lines and take a cell phone photo of the fridge magnets and discuss them up there at the board. And then they'll take their seats, and then we'll start to talk about the quotes after they've had a few minutes to take photographs of them and everything. And that's one of the most popular ones, is the Scottish proverb, be happy because you're a long time dead. One of the students really kind of insisted that I give it to her or something. And I said, if I find another one, I'll give it to you. But I don't want to lose that one. That's like my most popular one. And she just couldn't live without it. She just thought it was the best thing.
my God. So I hope you didn't give it to her, did you?
No, I said, I'll give it to you if I find another one. And I went online, I just couldn't find it. So I said, look out for one. And,
Yeah.
if you find another one on eBay or something, send me the link and I'll buy it and I'll give you this one, so since you're so moved by it or something. So I think she wanted to give it to her grandfather or something, or she had a Scottish grandfather or something that she wanted to give it to. So, but I didn't want to give away my teaching tool, so that I was getting such reaction to. I mean, I wanted I wanted to share the wealth, spread it around a little bit. But it should be replaceable. I figured we'd be able to find another one, but we just weren't able to. Fridge magnets can get rare, I suppose.
Yeah.
And there's a fridge magnet for Confucius, and the Confucius refrigerator magnet says, "I never said any of that stuff." So they're joke refrigerator magnet quotes too.
Yes.
So I never said any of that. So actually, Confucius, he wouldn't recognize it if you said, "Hey, Confucius," or Confucius. It was Kung Fu. So but we're in California, we say, "Hey, Confucius," So we've Americanized it horribly and anglicized it. So Kung Fu. So he would recognize that, but he wouldn't recognize Confucius. So he'd say, "What are you talking about?" So get out of here. So and it's kind of interesting. The violence. One of the slogans of Buddhism is, if you meet the Buddha along the road, kill him.
Yes,
So
I've heard that. Yeah.
stick that in your pipe and smoke it. So well, anyway, maybe we should wrap it up there. Leave them laughing, they always say in show business. I always like to think between my
How about
Hawaiian.
one more?
You want to do one more
more?
quote? Sure, for you. One more. Let's see. Oh, this is a long one, but there's no bold for some reason. This is still in lecture 2, circumscription of the topic. So he's still trying to wrap his mind around the topic of the varieties of religious experience. So it's a long one. We'll just take it. This is Emersonianism. So this is what you mentioned earlier. It uses that as an example. Modern transcendental idealism, Emersonianism, for instance, also seems to let God evaporate into abstract ideality, not a deity in concreto, not a superhuman person, but the immanent divinity in things. The essential spiritual structure of the universe is the object of the transcendental cult. He calls it a cult. These days, that might not go over so well. Seems to be poo-pooing or menacing. In that address of the graduating class at Divinity College in 1838, which made Emerson famous, the frank expression of this worship of mere abstract laws was made the scandal of the performance. So this is different. This is saying that Emerson is more abstract, and you transcend the everyday, ordinary objects or experiences of your everyday life. And he said it was a scandal that made him famous. Maybe it made him infamous. I'll have to read that.
Yeah, I remember reading that. And I didn't quite understand The infamous part at the end, maybe.
Yeah, he said scandal. I'm putting infamous on. He said it made Emerson famous.
Yes,
And then he said the speech at the graduating class in 1838. I haven't read that speech. The frank expression of this worship of mere abstract laws was what made the scandal of the performance. So that's what made me think if you have scandal and it's famous, it's infamous. But
yeah,
so why don't we read that address and we can talk about that
Okay.
at the top of week 3.
okay, good. I'd like that.
Yeah. And then we'll try to get more into Emerson and Thoreau more next week. But we can I think we're doing well just hammering away at the varieties of religious experience quotes, but this can be a little side trip, a little detour into Emerson and Thoreau, if you'd like.
Yes.
It's not like we're leaving James behind.
No,
leaving.
because he devotes a couple of pages to transcendentalism.
Yeah, I'll
And
reread those things.
I think he includes the whole, well, maybe not.
The whole
maybe not.
divinity speech.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe
I
just
could run
part
for
of
an
it.
hour. You know, a
Yeah,
speed, half an hour or an hour, you might run.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to read that speech. I'll look it up also before our next meeting.
Yeah, and try to print out your the list of quotes if you would,
I
please.
will.
And
Yeah,
then
I'll find a way to
be
do that.
on the same page, literally.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I enjoyed the class, found it enlightening and enjoyable. Those are my twin goals. I traded off a little bit of enlightenment, perhaps, for some enjoyment with some Scottish jokes and stuff there.
I loved it. I loved it.
Good, yeah. Well, it's a heavy topic, you know, but if you can lighten it, I took a course on teaching, or it's a seminar or a conference, I think it was, and they said that they did psychological studies of teaching, and the frame of mind of the student in which the student learned the most was light arousal, not, you know, heavily aroused and not bored, but light arousal. So you can do that with jokes. You can get people lightly aroused.
Yes, yes.
And so if you have good humor, not kind of abusive humor, but, you know, self-deprecating or kind of good-natured humor,
Yeah.
where you're laughing with someone, not at someone, that apparently is one of the best frames of mind to have your students in. And I think the Hawaiian shirts help with that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's hard, you know, you're kind of visually aroused by the Hawaiian shirt for 80 minutes or something, 90 minutes in our case. Well, good talking to you, Marita. We'll do our homework and
Yes,
come
we
back
will.
9 o'clock next Friday.
Terrific.
Noon your time. You're still going to be in New York?
Yes, we will. We will.
Watch out for polio. They got polio in New York now.
Oh, my Lord.
It just came out today. They found polio virus in the sewage water.
Oh,
So they
God.
test the sewage treatment
Yes,
water
yes.
to find out how they're doing on COVID and other things.
Oh, my goodness.
So we got COVID, we got monkeypox going on, and we got polio coming back. And monkeypox is a cousin of smallpox. We got rid of smallpox, but we didn't get rid of its cousin, monkeypox.
Wow.
So again, stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Be careful. And I'll see you next week then.
Okay. Thanks a
take care.
lot.
Bye.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for making it easy and fun and enlightening and enjoyable.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.